To check, he was horrified to find that the walls were also lined with steel. Zhang Yi had prepared for this. Everyone was stunned by the sight of the impenetrable fortress that Zhang Yi had built. No one could understand why someone would go to such lengths, adding steel to the walls and reinforcing the entire apartment. It became clear that Zhang Yi must have known about the coming apocalypse, which made his fortress a calculated and strategic move. The residents, filled with despair, realized that no matter what they did, they would never be able to break through his defenses. On a moment of desperation, two of the neighbors exchanged a brief, hungry look and briefly considered eating each other, but the thought quickly passed. One resident remembered that his apartment's balcony was made of glass, which sparked a new idea. The group, fueled by hope, decided to try and break through the balcony to get inside. Using wooden planks from the neighboring apartment, they attempted to pry their way in. Unfortunately, the glass was bulletproof, and their efforts were futile. Zhang Yi, watching from inside, calmly observed their struggle. As they froze in the bitter cold, he took a Molotov cocktail and threw it into a hole in the wall, which landed right on their heads. The flames ignited in an instant, and the residents screamed in agony, their hopes dashed. The fire spread quickly, and those who managed to escape the fire tried to flee back to the neighboring apartment, but the others blocked their path for fear of burning themselves. In the chaos, those who didn't fall off the planks took the opportunity to warm up briefly, but the damage had already been done. Later, the residents, now remorseful, returned to the balcony, begging for food. Zhang Yi, unfazed, showed them a plate of warm pasta just to see their desperate hunger. He taunted them with it, placing the plate on the table in front of them, letting them drool. Then, with a smirk, he told them that whoever brought Chen Zhang's head to him would receive food for a week. The residents' eyes immediately turned to Chen Zhang, who was in the neighboring apartment. Everyone, including those behind him, understood that killing Chen Zhang meant food and survival for a while. Chen Zhang, realizing the danger, locked the door to his apartment. But before he could make a move, Zhang Yi put out a notice in the building group, offering a reward of a week's worth of food for anyone who could kill Chen Zhang. The next morning, a group of residents, thin and starving, waited to ambush him. Armed with a pistol, they managed to surprise Chen Zhang and his loyal followers, taking them down. Both were left lying on the ground, and one of Zhang Yi's men ordered them to be stored as food. Chen Zhang, though injured in the attack, called Dr. Zhou'er to treat his wound. She tended to him, but made it clear that it wouldn't be for free. Chen Zhang offered her food, but she refused, stating she would rather starve than eat what was prepared. He sarcastically remarked that she would be the last person to become food in the building. Despite his comments, Dr. Zhou'er tried to leave, but Chen Zhang insisted that she couldn't go until he was healed. She sat quietly in the corner, listening to the discussions of his men, who were plotting their next move against Zhang Yi. Dr. Zhou'er, understanding the grave situation, knew she had to act quickly. She excused herself, saying she needed to use the bathroom, but instead she secretly communicated with Zhang Yi, informing him of the plans she overheard. Meanwhile, Chen Zhang's men went to the neighboring apartment to raid for food and steel. The unsuspecting couple who lived there were brutally killed in cold blood, and the resources were taken. Chen Zhang, ever cautious, told Dr. Zhou'er that he couldn't afford to have any predators around his home, as they might try to hunt him down next. Dr. Zhou'er was beginning to understand just how dire things had become in the building. The friends of Yuqing who had been hit by the arrows were suffering from serious infections. Without medicine, their wounds festered, and the cold was the only thing numbing their pain. Zhou Pang, desperate and still hoping for a chance with Yuqing, kept asking his cousin to try convincing Zhang Yi one more time, but she firmly believed it was useless. Days passed, and Zhang Yi continued to eat, completely unaffected by the suffering around him. Meanwhile, Chen Zhang, increasingly paranoid, feared an ambush as he ate more and more. Zhang Yi, aware of the escalating situation, called Zhou'er to check on her. She informed him that Chen Zhang had gone mad, people were starving, and he had begun invading houses to steal whatever food was left. Worse, he was keeping the dead for later. Zhou'er had gone without food for days and was desperate for help. Zhang Yi thought for a moment, realizing how valuable Zhou'er was. In a world where competent doctors were rare, she was a treasure. He decided to help her, but gave her one final task before she could come to his house. Meanwhile, Zhou Pang, desperate and clinging to hope, knocked at Zhang Yi's door, begging for food for Yuqing, the girl he had once loved and rejected him. Zhang Yi coldly responded that Zhou Pang's tetanus had already advanced too far, and the medicines wouldn't help him anymore. Zhou Pang, in desperation, ran to Yuqing's room. He kneeled and asked her to marry him, but she rejected him violently. She slapped him and made it clear she belonged to Zhang Yi. Heartbroken, Zhou Pang made a vow to go to hell for her. As this turmoil unfolded, Dr. Joer was busy in the kitchen. She promised to make a decent meal for the men holding her captive, but little did they know it wasn't regular meat. She added something to the soup and stirred it, forcing herself not to vomit. Once the soup was served, she made sure to serve herself a bowl too before retreating to her room. The medicine she had added took effect quickly, and within minutes the men were fast asleep. Relieved, she sent a message to Jang Yi, reporting that the plan had worked. Jang Yi, watching through the cameras, responded with instructions. He wanted her to move the men to the balcony. Dr. Joer was hesitant, wondering if this meant he intended to kill them. But Jang Yi tossed her a rope, indicating that she was to tie everyone to the balcony railing. She tried to bargain, questioning whether she could trust him, but Jang Yi made it clear that this was her only choice. Reluctantly, she complied, throwing Chen Zhang's gun at Jang Yi after checking its magazine. Jang Yi examined the gun, confirming it was the same weapon used by Chen Zhang. He then grabbed a water hose and threw water onto the balcony, waking the men up. As the water fell, they screamed in shock, realizing they had been drugged and were now tied up. Chen Zhang cursed Jang Yi repeatedly, but the cold water turned him into a frozen statue. Dr. Joer, weak and exhausted, managed to call Jang Yi, letting him know that the task was complete. A few minutes later, she stood outside Jang Yi's door, watching through the security cameras. Jang Yi, ever cautious, still wanted to ensure there were no risks. He instructed her to open the heavy door and enter, while he pointed the gun at her. Dr. Joer finally entered Jang Yi's apartment, her body weary from the tense night. The warmth inside was a relief after the cold. Jang Yi approached her from behind, making it clear that things weren't over yet. He had to ensure they weren't hiding anything from each other. Flushing with embarrassment, Joer knew exactly what he wanted. She removed everything, leaving only her underwear, ensuring there was nothing hidden from his view. Jang Yi seemed satisfied and led her to a room where she would shower and change into fresh clothes. As Joer showered, Jang Yi took the opportunity to confiscate all the items from the medical kit, maintaining his cautious approach. Afterward, when she emerged dressed in pajamas, Jang Yi made her sit down, instructing her to dry her hair. He reminded her that her compliance was important, as her value to him depended on her obedience. If she broke the rules, there would be no mercy. She understood the consequences. Jang Yi then decided to share his secret. He revealed that, unlike everyone else, he had access to resources that no one else did. He took out bread from the dimensional storeroom, showing her that if she betrayed him, she would be left with nothing, no food, and ultimately no survival. Joer, moved by this revelation, understood how Jang Yi had been able to live so comfortably and even cried with emotion while eating. With her basic needs met, Jang Yi made it clear that she would now be responsible for all household chores. She hesitated at first, but the scoundrel interrupted, making it clear that her companionship and assistance in the tasks were expected. And they would now be a couple in every sense of the word, including sharing intimate moments. The next day, Jang Yi looked at Joer still asleep and remarked how pleasant it was to have a woman around in such dire times. After she dressed, they went to breakfast, living a life that now felt more luxurious than before the apocalypse. Jang Yi threw her one of the special cold coats and handed her a baseball bat. He reminded her that she still had work to do. Despite helping to freeze the men outside the previous day, now Joer had to go and destroy the frozen bodies without question. She did as instructed, bashing the frozen remains while Jang Yi filmed her work. His intention was clear: to send the video to the residents group, showing them that their tormentor Chen Zhang was now in pieces. The residents in their homes did not question Joer's presence or the grim task she was doing. They celebrated her actions, praising her without hesitation. Amid this, Jang Yi received a call from Yuching, who, with a crazed look in her eyes, revealed that she had heard about Chen Zhang's death. She claimed to be ready to be Jang Yi's woman now, and that she had been prepared to kill for him. As Yuching spoke, her friends could be heard in the background preparing to kill her. Jang Yi took advantage of the moment to mess with her mind. He sent her a picture of Joer, now claiming her as his fiancée. When Yuching saw the message, her mind began to spiral further. Yuching, feeling utterly betrayed, broke free from her two friends and rushed to the phone. There she saw the image of Jang Yi with his girlfriend and her mind snapped. In her desperation, she declared her love for him, saying that she loved him more than anyone else. But Jang Yi, cold and emotionless, threw it back in her face, telling her that she didn't matter, and that the one he loved was the woman with him now. He then hung up on her, leaving her shattered. Her friends, seeing how far gone she was, didn't even want to hit her anymore. They were furious with her for planning to live with Jang Yi, leaving them to get stuck in their miserable situation. But now they were all in the same position, and it seemed that Jang Yi's manipulation had worked as intended. After hearing how much Yuching had suffered, Jang Yi asked his little girlfriend if he had been too cruel. She responded that whether he was or not didn't matter, he had his reasons. She explained how she had first heard about him when she went to help the two girls and how, despite everything, she believed Jang Yi was right in his actions. In the cruel world they now lived in, survival came first and Jang Yi's methods, while harsh, were effective. Meanwhile, in another building, a person decided they couldn't bear the weight of the world anymore and attempted to jump from the building, but their action went unnoticed by the two. Soon after, Jang Yi's phone rang. It was his Uncle Yu, and he sounded cheerful. Jang Yi was relieved to hear that his uncle had survived everything, thanks to the supplies Jang Yi had warned him to store before the apocalypse. However, Uncle Yu wasn't alone. He was with Sheila Mei, the single mother from before, and her sick son. They needed medicine. Jang Yi, though, was cautious and only agreed to help because of his respect for his uncle. He told his uncle to come and pick up the medicine later. When Uncle Yu and Sheila arrived, Jang Yi didn't open the door. Instead, he threw the medicine through a small opening in the door, and his uncle thanked him for the help. However, Sheila pressed for more, asking to come inside so her baby could warm up by the fireplace. Jang Yi, reluctant to let them in, lied that his coal had run out, and that he and his girlfriend had enough coats to stay warm. Uncle Yu reluctantly accepted Jang Yi's refusal, but Sheila persisted. She even tried to manipulate the situation by suggesting that Jang Yi's girlfriend Joer was with him, and that was the only reason she was staying there. Blushing, Joer felt the weight of the lie, but Jang Yi stood firm. Eventually, Uncle Yu grew tired of the conversation, expressing his gratitude for the medicine and leaving. As they left, Jang Yi was mentally exhausted. The situation with Sheila had drained him. He couldn't help but reflect on how, in his past life, this woman had survived by exploiting others. But now he was too tired to care. He laid his head in his girlfriend's lap, staring out at the view, knowing that Sheila's presence could easily disrupt his plans. Later, when Uncle Yu returned home, he confronted Sheila, telling her that she had abused his nephew's trust. Sheila tried to defend herself, claiming that everything she did was for her baby's sake. But Uncle Yu reminded her that if it weren't for Jang Yi's foresight in preparing for the apocalypse, they would have nothing. When she continued to badmouth Jang Yi, he snapped, warning her that there were limits to his patience, and if she didn't stop, she would be alone. The next morning, a new threat emerged. People from a neighboring building had dug a tunnel under the snow to reach Jang Yi's building. They were seen as enemies the moment they arrived, and the first unfortunate soul was shot dead. The group, aware of the sturdy door, brought dynamite in an attempt to break through. One of them lit the fuse and ran, but the explosion only caused minimal damage. The noise of the explosion woke Jang Yi, and he quickly checked the security cameras. He saw that the construction workers who lived nearby had come to test their luck. They were certain the explosion would destroy the door, but to their frustration, nothing happened. Jang Yi, angered by their attempt to take what was his, began planning his next move. Jang Yi, with his usual cunning, retaliated with malice. He solved the cold problem with a grenade, warming up the enemies he had just incapacitated. Afterward, he used his Glock to put several more of them to sleep. His limited ballistic supplies were running low, and it became clear to him that the people from other buildings must know about his stockpile of supplies and were coming after it too. These violent noises, the explosions and gunshots, left Joer, the doctor, visibly shaken. She had never experienced such chaos before, and it dawned on her that these sounds, the violence, were now a regular part of their new reality. Embarrassed, she masked her fear and resumed her work. Jang Yi, ever the strategist, quickly realized he needed to act. In the residence group, people were asking about the loud noises, and Jang Yi, always clever, explained that the noise came from residents of another building who had tried to blow up his house. He added that they had been trying to rob everyone, but he had driven them off. Everyone in the group expressed gratitude for his actions. Still thinking ahead, Jang Yi called his uncle for more information. His uncle informed him that the group that had attacked was from another building and led by a man named Wang Tanfong. This group had done the same thing as Chun Jiang, overturned the residence, took control of the building, and stole food. Jang Yi knew that this would not be the last time they would try to take what was his. They would be back for revenge. He made it clear to his uncle that the group had many followers and would certainly return to challenge them again. Jang Yi suggested they needed to unite the neighboring residents and prepare to defend themselves. He then had a private conversation with Joer, expressing his suspicions that, if given the chance, the other residents would betray him. He tasked her with gathering intelligence on the other building groups alongside Uncle Yu. Days passed and Joer, now disguised as a maid, reported back with valuable information. She had learned that the strongest groups in the neighborhood were from Building A, the one that had attacked them previously, and another group from Building B. There were also groups from 2 other buildings that seemed to be strong, but hadn't made any moves yet. Jang Yi quickly deduced that the residents of the neighboring buildings were turning on each other rather than uniting, which significantly weakened their threat. Grateful for her hard work, Jang Yi instructed Joer to continue gathering information. Though she blushed at his praise, she knew her role was vital. The situation took a turn when the group from Building A returned to the building. They began overrunning other apartments, leaving behind a chilling message. As long as Jang Yi stayed in the building, all the residents would die. This news quickly spread, disrupting Jang Yi and Joer's quiet time together. The building's residents, now in a panic, demanded that Jang Yi take action. Seeing their desperation, Jang Yi's anger flared again. He sent texts and audio messages to the group, telling them that their lives meant nothing to him and that they needed to defend themselves. Shortly afterward, he called his uncle to discuss the next steps. He told his uncle that the gang from Building A was large but still manageable, and if they joined forces, they could fight them off. Uncle Yu agreed, and Jang Yi organized a meeting in the group chat. He told everyone that he had been surviving better than most, being well-fed and strong. He presented himself as the only one who had the energy and resources to lead them in the fight against the rival building group. He made it clear that if everyone agreed to follow his orders, he would help them defend themselves. Most of the residents, desperate to survive, agreed to follow him. Jiangji was calm, knowing that taking the risks would be necessary. He told them that if they didn't act now, they would soon be overrun by the group from Building A. With Uncle Yu's encouragement, the residents finally agreed to unite under Jiangji's leadership. Jiangji convinced the group to follow his lead, assuring them that if they trusted him, he'd find a way to get food. He mentioned there were vehicles capable of traveling through the snow, and if they allowed him to go, he could bring back supplies. The neighbors, desperate to survive and hoping for food, agreed to do whatever it took, even if it meant risking their lives. Everyone quickly accepted Jang Yi as the leader, now seeing him as their savior. For his first trip outside, Jang Yi geared up in a special cold-resistant outfit, ready for the challenge. Just as Jur suggested joining him, he told her no, reassuring her he trusted her to stay behind. But the moment he left, someone in the building used their powers to steal all the supplies. He quickly made his way down to the 4th floor, and with the snow piled high, anyone trying to walk outside would be lost to the cold. Fortunately, he had a snowmobile hidden in his dimensional space. Some people saw him pulling the snowmobile out, and others might have just seen him riding it, but no one was sure. Jang Yi's destination was the Chanu City police station. Breaking in was easy, and once inside, he found the officers who had frozen to death, their bodies a grim reminder of how brutal the cold had been. Respecting their sacrifice, Jang Yi covered the bodies before looking around for the keys. With them, he gained access to the weapon storage, which was a treasure trove of supplies. He filled his dimensional space with weapons and ammunition, knowing they'd be useful. Next, he set out to find food for his group. Heading to the mall, he dug through the snow until he reached the roof. After breaking in, he looted the supermarket, gathering whatever was still edible frozen fruits and meats, but it was enough for those with nothing else. He packed it up and made his way back to the building. When he returned, the leader of the building, green with envy, watched as Jang Yi effortlessly made it back with the food. The residents who had heard the snowmobile and seen it were also impressed, especially Uncle Yu, who was overjoyed to see his nephew had returned with so much. Jang Yi made it clear how tough it had been to get the food and warned them it wasn't easy. The leader, holding a gun, ordered everyone to hand over their food or face the consequences. His first order was simple: steal more food and eliminate anyone who got in their way. Anyone who killed would be rewarded with food. The residents, desperate for food, charged at the building's gang, attacking them with ferocity. They had no idea how the weak and fearful had suddenly become so ruthless. Jang Yi and Jur watched as the building's residents won, celebrating their victory. Some survivors fled back to their building, while the wounded were left behind. Jur, knowing she could help the wounded, hesitated because she knew it would cost valuable resources. But deep down, she knew Jang Yi wouldn't allow it. This raises the question: is Jang Yi a villain, an anti-hero, or just someone doing whatever it takes to survive? From here on out, he would use everyone around him in a calculating way. And with that, the video ends. Don't forget to subscribe for part 2 and drop a comment below telling us what you think about the protagonist. Is he a hero, an anti-hero, or a villain? We'd love to hear your thoughts.